Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Gettysburg Borough Council. And we'd like to start, as we always do, with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. Pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. An executive session of the Borough Council of the Borough of Gettysburg will be conducted immediately following the adjournment of this evening's monthly business meeting, consistent with Section 708A2 and Section 708A5 of the Sunshine Act, for the following purposes. 1, to receive informational updates relative to a pending grievance matter and a contractual issue raised by the Teamsters Local number 776 in connection with the borough's collective bargaining agreements with its police and non-uniformed employees' labor organizations. And 2, to revise and discuss matters of borough business which, if conducted in public, could lead to the disclosure of information or matters of confidentiality protected by law. All right, that takes us to tonight's agenda. I would take a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And a motion to approve the minutes of the council meeting of January 8th, 2024, and the council work session meeting on January 22nd, 2024, as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Does anybody have any corrections or omissions they would like to mention? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to public comment. The first session of public comment is restricted to items on tonight's agenda. Please limit yourself to 5 minutes. Please use the podium. Please state your address of residence. Any public comment? Anything on the agenda? Okay. Can you give us the address, please?
201.
Thank you, sir.
I'm here to say in those strong terms that I'd like to urge you folks to reject the ordinance and the variance for the library. I think the library should stay where it is. I don't think they appreciate what they have. It's a historic part of Gettysburg. It's been there for 110 years. It's a wonderful library. It has all sorts of unique architectural features. It's much better than any run-of-the-mill building that they would build way on the other side of Seminary Ridge. It's convenient for anybody that lives, it's right in the heart of town. Anybody that lives anywhere around can easily get there to walk. A lot of folks can't even walk. To get there, they won't be able to get out to Seminary Ridge, on the other side of Seminary Ridge. A one-story building is notoriously noisy. You'll have kids running around all over the place. The way it is now, the kids have their own separate room downstairs, away from the adults. They have a room for the friends' bookshop. They have ample room on the main floor, many computers. It's a quiet, dignified area, and it's been there as a library for 33 years, I think. And suddenly they've got a bee in their bonnet about building this run-of-the-mill building out there. And I think they ought to think long and hard before they move it. And besides, Gettysburg needs a flagship library that's dignified and it stands out from the other ones in the county. Gettysburg should have a historic building. And this was made when the government made edifices that we could be proud of. The government made a post office there right in the center of town because it was the best place. And I think a lot of people just don't realize what they have. It's part of historic Gettysburg, downtown Gettysburg. You start gutting that. It's convenient to the municipal building, it's to the 7 churches, the courthouse, many lawyers' offices. It's convenient, and it's very quiet and peaceful. And they have a genealogy room, which is very dignified, and it's conducive to study. And I think they ought to just say no to this ordinance, this variance on the zoning. And maybe they ought to be considering getting a new set of directors rather than getting rid of the library. So, and I know a lot of people in town, they would be here tonight if they knew about it. And a lot of people I talk to in town, every one of them says, no, they like the library where it is. You ought to keep it there. We have a nice library. It's perfect. You look at those classical Greek columns out in the front there, you drive by at night, you see Lincoln up there, and you see the Greek columns. What kind of little building would they build out there? A one-story little run-of-the-mill, average nothing. And it's something that Gettysburg should have. A historic building that we can be proud of. So, and like I said, a lot of people would be here if they knew about it. And I think the consensus in the town is to just leave it alone. It's fine. It's 110 years old.
I ask you to conclude your thought, please.
Okay, well, I just want to urge the council people in the most strenuous terms to reject this requested variance.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, all right.
Is there any other public comment at this time?
Scott English, business owner, 6668 West High Street. I would just like to echo the previous speaker's sentiments about moving the library. Ever since I've been coming here as a kid, since 1962, when it was the post office, my grandfather and I would walk to that building twice a day to get the mail. When the library came there, I thought it was awesome, and it's very convenient. It's very light on the carbon footprint. I guess everybody's going to drive to the new library. I don't know. And also, I think the process that the library and the county are going to have to go through is going to be very cumbersome. If they're using any federal money, they're going to have to go through the NEPA process. They're going to tear down buildings that are over 50 years old. They're already historic. They're part of the seminary. I just, I understand growth and change, but I think the current situation for the building is most convenient for the residents and those folks that use it in Gettysburg. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move along. It takes us to current business, and our first presentation tonight will be from Mr. Whitmore and the Planning Department.
Good evening. The presentation will be kind of short, I guess, but in terms of the report, there is error and omission right off the bat. We do have 4 motions for this evening. 3 of them concern institutional zoning district to allow for library use as proposed. Currently, the library use is folded into cultural center, allows quite a few other uses, so this would be an opportunity for the council to specify specifically library has its own use, and then also clarify that it is permitted in the institutional zone. Other than that, the report delves into the sign ordinance, let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, the sign ordinance, the zoning ordinance, specifically the opportunities that we've been taking with staff and members of the public to be able to engage on these ordinances. zoning ordinance will be meeting again with the consultant later this month on the 28th as of now. The overall consensus we've been hearing from the public engagement, there's a real concern with Heights and there's a real concern with the Elm Street district. We've pretty much got the Elm Street issue as that it exists under control, as there really wouldn't be a removal of the Elm Street district from the zoning ordinance. It would be about 2 properties that would be affected by the change, but there won't be any functional change to the underlying land uses that are permitted for those properties. So there will be a change on a map, but not a real change in reality. With regards to the sign ordinance, we tried to have a good meeting last week. Didn't really work out that well. We'll be having some continuing meetings every 2 weeks in person in here. Big thing is trying to establish the, how do I put this? Establishing the ability for tenants, business tenants, to be able to have signage that's appropriate for their commercial messaging needs. And then finally, the code enforcement ticketing. This is the 4th motion on tonight's agenda. Specifically, this will allow, as we discussed at the work session, it's a method to enable compliance a little bit quicker and a little bit less painless, or more painless, I guess. It would allow for individuals to receive a ticket. There's as opposed to the citation. Citation, it takes quite a long time. The ticket's more, it's in your face. You get it. You understand what's going on. So it's our hope we'll be working with the solicitor on all of these issues and items, and then as related to the zoning planning commission recommendation as well prior to public hearing.
So I'm sorry, were you saying that there's an error somewhere? Is it in the report? Or
Well, in the report, it says that there were no motions, but there are 4.
Right. Okay. All right, are there any questions for Mr. Whitmore?
I have a question for Mr. Eastman. Would you please clarify the motions that are coming up that have to do with the library and that mention the library specifically? Are those motions only for the library, or is it to change the zoning for other purposes?
It is to initiate the process to modify or amend the zoning ordinance. So how that governs, not specifically for the library, although I think we'd be less than candid if, this wasn't coming to the Borough Council upon a request of the Adams County Library System for you to consider an amendment to the zoning ordinance text. But this is essentially the provisions, it follows the provisions of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code to enable the Borough Council to act legislatively with reference to its ordinance, which of course impacts the entirety of the borough, but specifically to modify the text of the zoning ordinance as it relates to the institutional zone.
So am I correct that this is not a vote for their plan, it is a vote that will allow them to proceed with their plan?
And you're not ever going to be voting on their plan because that is actually within the jurisdiction or function of the Planning Commission. And it's my understanding that is ongoing and I think it had been, if I recall, it probably had been initiated sometime in the fall. So again, but the action on your zoning ordinance is solely, you folks are the legislative body, and it is only you folks that can act to enact or to modify your ordinances, so.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Whitmore or for Mr. Eastman? All right, would anybody care to make the first motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the request of the Adams County Library System for a Gettysburg Borough zoning ordinance text amendment for the purpose of adding a library principal use as a use permitted by right in the institutional 1 zoning district.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I would like to just discuss this as a body, and I think we are going to be looking at zoning this year, and I'm just wondering, we're taking this at the request of one organization, basically, that's the reason why we're looking at it, and so I would encourage us to actually delay on this. And I think the gentleman who spoke publicly a few minutes ago raises a lot of good points. We've talked, I know I have talked in the past about this being a pedestrian-friendly, walkable community. We want it to continue to be that way. I have some, after our last meeting, I've had a lot of reservations about just the location for this. So I'd like to slow down the process. That's my thought.
I would like to comment back on that. I just don't see it as our purview. The Adams County Library System has a board of directors. If they don't feel that their building is conducive to what they want for their library, who are we to say they have to stay there? I feel like that it's good to hear from the public. I applaud the public that's willing to come and speak always. But I've also had some public come and speak against what you just said. There's been a lot of talk about, I didn't know about it. I feel like the Planning Commission has talked about this. I feel like the library issue has been talked about over the last 2 years that I've been on council, at least once or twice. I feel like it's been in the Gettysburg Times at least once or twice over the last 2 years. If you are not able to get internet at your home, the library does have internet available, and the Planning Commission agendas and these Borough Council meeting agendas, workshop agendas, and business meeting agendas are available on the website. If you're having struggles at the Adams County Library, at the downtown Gettysburg branch of that library with internet, that's one of the very reasons why they need to leave that building. That's my voice on the matter. I do not think we should delay, but I would like to hear from the rest of the council as well.
I think the Adams County Library had a survey and did their due diligence to ask the community about the needs, and I think if we delay it, it's going to really hurt them in their process of moving to where they want to move, and I think they are looking outside of the borough.
And I don't want that.
I talked to someone who serves on the library board, and they don't have another option other than this option at the seminary right now, so.
I can see both sides of this argument here. We don't have the authority to say they should stay, or that, and we can say we want them to stay, but we can't compel them to stay in any one location. The library system functions at the county level. It is not a municipal service. I think if these three motions go forward, what we are doing is simply codifying a use that is already being demonstrated in the institutional zone. The seminary has a library. Gettysburg College has a library, which is, I believe, public. And the Gettysburg Area School District has 2 libraries, all within Gettysburg's institutional zones. Just putting that out there.
And I speak for myself, but I would hope that, I'm pretty certain that the entire council agrees, we would love for the library to stay within the borough somehow. But I know that their current building, as beautiful as it is, I'm not arguing that point, has a lot of problems for them. Internet being one of them.
Okay.
I think that, from what I've heard, the library is going to move regardless. So what this does is it allows them to move forward with that plan. If we don't enact this, it slows them down, but they're going to still continue to move forward with it. So are we in the position of just slowing down the library to make their lives harder while they're going to do this anyways? That's my thoughts.
Anyone else?
I agree with Chad when it comes to our ability to legislate. Excuse me, I'm kind of losing my voice, but I don't think it is in our, within our realm to legislate away someone's ability to build, to change where they are, or to move. I mean, if we're following the code and we're, obviously, we're bound by that. I think it's our function and our duty and responsibility.
And I would encourage anyone in the public who does not want to see the library move to actually attend or write to the directors, the library directors, and make your wishes known. I think that's really important to do. So.
Any further discussion on this motion? All right, then let's vote, please. All those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next motion, authorizing the drafting and preparation of the ordinance amendment.
I'll make a motion to authorize the drafting and preparation of a proposed ordinance amending the text of the Gettysburg Borough zoning ordinance for the purpose of adding a library principal use as a use permitted by right in the institutional-1 INS1 zoning district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I just want to remind my colleagues that as the zoning ordinance revision committee has been meeting, there has not been any dissent on the subject of adding the library use to the institutional zone. The request we are moving forward with here is to amend the existing zoning ordinance to reflect that same intended change to assist the library in securing their real estate transaction. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have the third motion.
I'll make a motion to authorize the setting of a public hearing of the Borough Council to be held on Monday, April 8th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. and to authorize the provision of public notice of the hearing consistent with the provisions of Section 609 of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code relative to the proposed amendment to the text of the Gettysburg Borough zoning ordinance in order to add a library principal use as a permitted use by right in the institutional-1 INS-1 zoning district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? This is to set the public hearing. This will be the public's opportunity to voice any opposition or support for this plan before it is enacted. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we have a motion on the code enforcement ticketing process.
I'll make a motion to authorize the drafting and preparation of a proposed ordinance for the purpose of implementing a code enforcement ticketing process in an effort to streamline the enforcement of certain borough ordinances and the procedures for the payment of fines and penalties in order to limit the need for issuance of a citation and any subsequent proceedings through the court system.
Is there a second? All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Gable or Mr. Whitmore, would you please speak to this issue a little bit for us for the benefit of the public?
Yeah. So with regards to the ticketing process, currently we have to go through a citation process. Issuing a citation takes time. There are appeals processes built into it. So let's say for instance that'll be happening in a couple months is tall grass. We all just want the grass cut. We don't necessarily want to get a citation and get the fines and get the magistrate to give a ruling. We just want the grass cut. Having a ticketing process allows the borough to, instead of only utilizing citation, to enable the additional process of providing the individual, that owner, the person that's in charge of the property, a ticket, just like any other, almost like a speeding ticket or other type of infraction. Informing the individual of what is occurring, why it's illegal, why it doesn't meet ordinance, and then also providing for a much smaller basis fine to correct the issue. This isn't a money-making scheme. This is just a way for us to provide the individuals that are currently not meeting our ordinances, especially as they relate to property maintenance, a method. This encourages their cooperation a little bit more peacefully and a little bit more timely than going through the citation. If they don't want to fix the problems, then we would still go through the citation process, and that would be something, utilizing the tickets, we'd be able to provide that information to the magistrate to make an even fuller case. So we have recommended this as a method to enable better customer service on our end by providing the community with ordinances that are being followed and corrections being made in a timely manner.
Any questions?
It's really streamlining it is what you're describing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And did I understand that it's also cost saving?
The goal would be, in a perfect world, we're not giving citations, we're not giving tickets because everyone's cutting the grass, everyone's property is perfect. But this will enable our code enforcement officer to not have to go through as many hoops, and especially when it comes to the appeals process associated with the citation. We should see results much quicker, and that should have an effect on the ability for our code enforcement officer to enforce on more properties. So there should be some cost savings. If it's going to be directly seen, that's a question, but there should be some benefit in that regard.
Thank you.
Well, we have enjoyed extensive cost savings at moving our code enforcement in-house as well. We used to contract that service to a third party, and by doing it internally, we have saved considerable amount of money, as well as having been able to sort of direct the approach to be more personable and more individualized, and instead of sort of a cookie cutter bureaucratic response.
Yeah.
If I could just real quick speak to Sammy's point. You already do substantially similar to what you do with parking. They issue a parking ticket. If they don't comply with the parking ticket, a citation is issued. Even if the fine is the same on this ticket that the code enforcement officer would issue, if it's handled through this ticketing process, the savings is going to fall within court costs, because every time you file something with the court, there's a substantial amount of cost. As a matter of fact, the majority of the money that they're paying is generally the cost rather than the fine. So that's where, even without a reduction in fine in the ticketing end, there's going to be a substantial savings, because there will be no court costs associated if it's settled through the ticketing process, just like we currently do with parking.
And if I may, and you use the example of, excuse me, and you use the example of grass, but it's also like weeds as well.
Snow, tomorrow.
Snow. When the autumn comes and the leaves are falling again, are the property owners responsible for sweeping up leaves?
I understand, it depends on where the leaves are, but yes, generally.
And sweeping them into the street is not.
We've had that.
Just like the snow. So, okay. Thank you. Neighbors have asked, so I want to make sure that I have the right answer.
Any further questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. That brings us to Ms. English.
Thank you, Matt. The only item on my council vote is for Mr. Kirk Kramer as a appointee for the Gettysburg Stormwater Authority. We do not have any motions for HARB, as we didn't have any projects presented in January, so that meeting was canceled. The Act 101 for FM 12 reports, we're working on those. We should have those completed into Adams County in the next probably day or so. I'll be working on the 904 grant, which is due in September. I usually do them at the same time, kind of joint information on both of those projects. The We're also getting ready to process liens for the Stormwater Authority. We have approximately 54 parcels that have not been paid, so the liens will be processed through a solicitor, and those will go out, and then I think they have 30 days to pay the lien fees, or the lien goes on there. It adds additional $300 to all the costs, so if anybody can pay their bills, they can pay them today or tomorrow, or we haven't started that process yet. I think we have, we're also working with a upcycle art project for the ARM Adams County Rescue Mission. So we want all recyclers and junk collectors to make some artwork for them. They're having an event on June 7th to auction off art to benefit the Adams County Rescue Mission. So that would be a fundraiser that we're going to do some upcycled art for. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Great. Any questions for Ms. English?
Not a question. Thank you for your report. I just wanted to put a pitch out there for the zoning hearing board meeting agenda tomorrow at 7 p.m. It is open to the public.
Yes.
Some are loving the application that's coming up, and some are not. If you have a care about it, show up tomorrow here, Tuesday, 7 p.m. for the applicant, Getty's Golf. Thanks.
Okay. Would anybody care to make the stormwater motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Kirk Kramer as a member of the Gettysburg Borough Stormwater Authority for a 5-year term, which will expire in January 2029.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and we extend our thanks to Mr. Kramer for joining the
Who
Stormwater
is here in
Authority.
the audience, by the way, is in the public in the back.
There he is. Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, that takes us to Ms. Fissel.
Good evening. You all have my report. I have the comparisons there as normal. I would just like to say there's 18 reserved spaces in the parking garage right now. We have moved them all to level 1. Previously, they were all spaced out, and you'd go to pull in one and realize it was reserved. So they're all in one section now on level 1. I think that's about all that I have other than the motion there.
All right, any questions for Ms. Fissel? All right, does anybody care to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the preparation of a proposed resolution for the purposes of amending, modifying, and confirming certain fees for parking within the borough's Racehorse Alley parking garage, and to amend, modify, and confirm certain fees for the temporary reservation of parking spaces for the parking and placement of construction vehicles and open-top refuse containers, and to accordingly amend, modify, and confirm such fees as set forth in the borough's fee resolution adopted on December 11th, 2023.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. It takes us to Mr. Harbaugh, please.
Mr. Harbaugh or Mr. Carball?
I think he's Harbaugh.
Okay. Good evening. You all should have my report. Couple highlights on my report. We did collect 713.8 cubic yards of leaves last year for recycling. And we also collected 1,106 cubic yards of brush for recycling last year. I don't have a Christmas tree recycling numbers yet because Christmas trees are still popping up. So we're gonna try to continue collecting them till the end of February before we recycle them. Shade Tree Commission will be meeting tomorrow to discuss their spring planning at their meeting. Now their meeting will be upstairs in the conference room upstairs, not here in the council chambers. And with the ever-changing forecast, my meteorologist spoke to me before the meeting. We could be seeing 3 to 7 inches and possibly an inch per hour on some of those occasions. So we are prepared for that storm tomorrow. Be looking for possibly snow emergency either on the website or social media.
Yeah, that's a great point. Our nor'easter is evolving quickly, and it went from a light sprinkle to possible snowmageddon for us tomorrow. And for those of you who are not aware, the Gettysburg School District has already preemptively closed for tomorrow. They will be on remote instruction. Any questions for Mr. Harbaugh?
Will the garage be open for people who need to?
Yeah, I was going to address that in my report.
Thank you.
And that takes us to Mr. Claybaugh.
Good evening, Council. You have a copy of my written report. I don't really have anything to add to my report except for the next item on the agenda, which relates to the Gettysburg Inner Loop project. So before I jump ahead on your agenda, I'll pause for questions on my report, and then we can jump right into the Gettysburg Inner Loop project.
Any questions about his report? Jump on in.
So so I'll tee it off, and I believe Charles has some remarks here. We're going to tag team this update on the Gettysburg Inner Loop. As we presented in your January workshop meeting, we did not get the H2O grant. It was a significant amount of money, $900,000. That was going to go towards the project. What we heard loud and clear from you guys was that you wanted the project to proceed so that we don't forfeit CDBG or C2P2 money. So we regrouped over the past couple of weeks, got a new cost estimate. We're now at $1.28 million. The stormwater component of that's over $300,000. The water component of that's over $300,000. So that the lion's share, more than half of the project, is utility work. That remains to be the issue that is plaguing this project. And we also put together an estimate. We built a schedule for completing this project, the earliest that we can get it done and the latest we can get it done. So as you know, the CDBG has a deadline of May of next year. So the farthest we could push the construction is November of this year. But that puts our construction through the middle of the winter, which isn't ideal. You can do utility work in the winter. You can do concrete work in the winter if you blanket it. But for obvious reasons, it's not preferred. The soonest that we can get to construction, if we push forward and we get your authorization to advertise next month, your March meeting, we could get to construction in June, and that would have us completed just before Thanksgiving. That is one of the typical construction windows is stopped just before Thanksgiving, because then when you get into Thanksgiving, then you get into the other holiday time frame, and people are all for hunting season. And so if we can't get it complete by Thanksgiving, you might as well count on the fact that we're going to be paving in the spring. That's kind of the way that the construction works. So that's the kind of the highlight, or the high level update from our presentation a couple of weeks ago. And now I'm going to kick it over to Charles to start talking about the funding scenarios.
Yeah, so let me actually just for the public's information, Council receives things every month called policy briefing summaries. Policy briefing summaries are a living document of the iterations and evolution of various projects over time until such time as the project is completed. What we're talking about here, the Gettysburg Inner Loop Phase B, this policy briefing summary originated actually in February of 2020. So you can know that we've been talking about this project for some time. The beginning of any policy briefing summary is a declaration to the council for consideration of what needs to be made, a decision that needs to be made. So at task currently, in the short term through spring of 2024, the issue needing Borough Council attention is that of appropriating the adequate funds to get a segment of the larger project completed by May of 2025. And what we're talking about there is Phase B2 was a larger project between Franklin Avenue, Franklin Street, Racehorse Alley to North Washington Street, turning north onto North Washington Street, continuing north across the railroad tracks to Constitution Avenue. through various iterations and funding challenges and logistical concerns, Phase B2 needs to be broken into 2 smaller segments because, as Engineer Clayball mentioned, we've been unsuccessful at multiple grant requests being awarded. So the current segment that we're talking about just tonight is specific to what we've titled Phase B2B, which is just the North Washington Street section of this between Racehorse Alley and Constitution Avenue. It was discussed last month about a potential option to fund some of this through PennVest, which is a program provided by the state of Pennsylvania, which are low-interest loans for infrastructure projects like stormwater, potable water, those types of projects. I won't go into the details of what PennVest's vision is and their philosophy and the types of things that they specifically fund. That's all easily attainable by the public by a Google search. Just type in PennVest and it'll take you right there to their website, and you can learn more than you ever wanted to know about PennVest. But for our purposes, just an overview of what PennVest provides. They provide low-interest loans in 2 chunks of time, 1 to 5 years or 6 to 20 years. You can see it's a very low favorable rate of 1.743% for a term of 1 to 5 years, or 2.179% for a term of 6 to 20 years. Those are the current rates. Of course, as interest rates fluctuate, these rates would fluctuate as well. The benefit to PennVest, in addition to the low interest rate, is there's no origination fees, there's no bond counsel required. So if you remember, 2016, the borough took a $4 million bond issuance. There are considerable legal costs that go along with that. That would not be the case with PennVest. There's not a minimum to borrow. If you are borrowing money for one jurisdiction, you can borrow up to $11 million. If you're doing a project that's cross-jurisdictional, you can borrow up to $20 million. The other nice thing about PennVest is if we do apply for a grant and that grant is awarded, as we all know, local grants often come with local match money. PennVest dollars can be used as local match dollars if the municipality does not have that in their reserves for those local matches. Now, the problem we're running into is PennVest loans take at least 4 months to process their applications. The challenge we have is if the borough does not make a decision to move forward in the next month or so, we're going to lose a window to secure the small amounts of grant funding that have been awarded for this project, most notably the Community Development Block Grant Program. If you remember, some time ago, the Borough Council made a policy decision to use its 2021 and 2022 CDBG appropriations for streetscape enhancements on this segment, B2B. Those funds must be used by May of 2025, or those funds are forfeited and returned to HUD in DC, which frankly is cataclysmic for future CDBG allocations for direct entitlement community moving forward. So it would behoove us to not lose those monies and find a way to move forward. The other nice thing about this, even though what I'm talking about sounds dire, and it's not the best situation to be in, to be frank, we do have good partners in that the borough works very well with, obviously, the Stormwater Authority, which the council implemented in 2019. We work very well with our partners over at the Municipal Authority, GMA. We work very well with other partners, HABI, who've provided a better part of $140,000 towards this $1.3 million project. And also Columbia Gas is a great partner with us, and we regularly meet with them to coordinate any number of projects, our projects, their projects, et cetera. Columbia Gas is not part of this discussion this time around. However, there are stormwater components and potable water components to this GIL segment B2B.
So it would behoove all those entities, Stormwater Authority, GMA, and the borough to partner for cost savings, because what we're going to be asking from each of those organizations is actually significantly less than if they were to do that project on their own without the assistance and collaboration of other partners. So earlier tonight, we asked the Stormwater Authority to provide $230,000 out of their reserve account, and they have passed a motion committing to that, assuming that the other partners are going to play ball to make sure that this very vital project proceeds forward. GMA is aware of this issue. Their director, Mark Geis, has been very close to us and talking with us, and he's versed on this. And Member Berger is a representative to GMA. We would lean on you to press the importance on that board to making this happen, so that the borough does not forfeit those CDBG funds, because that's detrimental not just to the borough, but all other interested parties as well. And then the borough itself would dip into its capital projects fund for the delta of $273,000. Chad, did I miss any high-level points there?
I think you hit it pretty well.
Okay. So with that, we don't have a formal motion on this. We have a little bit of time, but we would certainly want to be in a position for the council to make a decision at its March meeting. We certainly could chew on this again at the workshop later this month, or if you want to move forward tonight, I think we could probably craft a motion and do so as well, unless the solicitor vetoes that idea.
Would people want to move forward with this commitment this evening? You can just kind of nod or shake your head for me.
Yeah, is GMA meeting shortly? I mean, what's their time frame?
Do you know when they meet
Next
next
week.
Tuesday.
Next Monday.
It's a holiday. Will they meet on the holiday?
No, maybe it is Tuesday.
They work on a holiday.
Are they working on the
Yeah, I
holiday?
think we'll probably
Okay.
still have the
Then
meeting
they'll probably
Monday.
meet the 19th then.
Great. I just remember, because Mr. Bales made a very interesting point in his last discussion where we mix and match the Penn vests along with reserves, and that's off the table based on the timeline. Moving forward, that's something we could certainly consider into other projects. With the follow-up on that.
Yeah, I know that when we looked at trying to get more grants, the timeline was too far out.
Yeah.
Is there a way, if we move forward with this, can we still apply for grants to be paid this back, or is that off?
No, grants generally are not reimbursement grants, so the short answer to that is no. But we certainly will. This gets us through this immediate kind of an emergency situation, so we can continue to apply for grants moving forward. I have a whole other graphic here I could show you of the frustration we're having with all the grants that we've applied for and haven't been awarded. But certainly moving forward, if we were going to apply for, well, RAISE grant, we're applying for, the $11 million RAISE grant for the Baltimore Street project. Penvest could be an opportunity to borrow, mix and match the borrowed money for the local match and reserves too. So moving forward, Penvest is an opportunity, but we just need a little more time to put together a master plan for that type of borrowing.
So would this be a resolution?
Probably. Are we looking to do something this evening? Is that what?
Well, it may be a motion to authorize a resolution for its March adoption.
The concern, of course, is, essentially is Sunshine Act issues. The public is entitled to know what we're going to be acting on at the meeting. That has to be posted at least 24 hours prior to that, and council didn't move to amend its agenda this evening. I would think that we would, I guess we could go through some sort of agenda amendment, but I think that's usually that's kind of things that are on a kind of an emergency basis, that sort of thing, that absolutely require you to act or operate on the fly, if you will. So those are my concerns.
So could it be possible that we wait till the GMA meets and have a formal motion presented at the very next workshop meeting? Would that work?
No.
We can't take formal action at the workshop meeting.
So if we don't authorize a resolution tonight, we would not be able to do so until our March business meeting, which still puts us at least a month out from being able to commit
Yeah,
funds.
let me
and-
find here's the timeline. Chad, if you want to speak to that a little bit more.
So, March 11th, this is your next council meeting. That's where we were looking to get authorization to advertise. That's the soonest that would allow us to get the construction done by November. As I mentioned earlier, there's about a 4-month window there where we can push it back all the way till July, knowing though that the project wouldn't be done before this winter at that point. It would most likely have some paving, some items that are carrying over till April of next year. April 1st is the paving, the start of paving season. Typically, that's whenever plants open, that's whenever PennDOT, that's paving. So there'll be some items of the project not complete until April, which is still okay. We still have till May of next year to spend the CDBG money. So that still works. So we do have about a 4-month window right there. So if we miss the March deadline, I don't know that it's the end of the world for the project. It just means that we're going to have some things that are going to wait until the spring to get finished probably.
Could we set a special meeting before the workshop?
We could do that.
Sure.
Would everybody be okay with that?
Yeah.
Setting a special meeting for 6:30 before the next workshop?
On February 26th.
To consider a resolution, or authorization to create a resolution to commit $273,500 of capital reserve funds to the Gettysburg Interloop Phase 2B2 project. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right.
And I think if I can add one thing, so I think part of the goal is because, of course, there's a lot of different scenarios where if GMA ends up going back with a different number, or the Stormwater Authority already committed to their portion of this, there's different ways to cut the pie, so to speak. So I'm kind of hearing that there's no objection to this strategy, so we can kind of keep our numbers as they are. Please know that this is our best estimate at this time for this project.
Right.
This hasn't been bid yet. So this project, once you guys authorize the bidding of this project, this is just an estimate of how much we think this project's going to. It's a pretty good estimate. We have our design is 90% complete, so it's a pretty good estimate. But we don't know entirely until we get the bids. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't need to pivot and start coming up with different ways to slice the pie, and it sounded like that's not the case here so far.
Do we need a motion to set the special meeting?
No. All right. You don't need to do that. Actually, that's one of the powers that the president of council has, is the ability to direct a special meeting.
I'll try not to abuse this
I
grand
hated to
power.
let you know that. But there it is. There's
All
your
right.
power. Use it well.
Yes, indeed. All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Are there any more questions for Mr. Claybaugh or for Mr. Gable on this subject? Seeing none, that takes us to Chief Glennie, whom I saw singing happy birthday this morning.
No, the chief didn't sing. The borough are probably falling in. And I did, however, say the Pledge of Allegiance. I got to tell you, I usually save the stuff that I do in February for the March meeting, but Lincoln's birthday is honestly one of my favorite days because Wendy Allen always calls me or sends me an email and says, hey, we're bringing all these preschool kids up to the square for Lincoln's birthday and they're going to tour the Wills house. And I do my darndest every year to get the horses there, and we were able to do that this year. We haven't been for the last couple of days, but I just love going up and talking to the kids. It's just awesome. So one of my favorite days of the year, and I usually, like I said, save it till next month, but just it's neat. There was, I mean, they had, I think, 4 or 5 different groups of kids, and they all said the Pledge of Allegiance, and I learned something today, that today is President Lincoln's 215th birthday. Did not know that. I knew, 200-some years old, didn't know he would have been 215 today. So it's a good day on Lincoln's birthday for me every year because of that. And But as far as my report, the one thing I really want to highlight, and I want to get across, well, we have the camera and maybe you can tell folks, is they seem to have waned, but these vehicle thefts that we were having are very problematic. And I want to encourage people to please don't leave things lay in your car out in the open that people can see them. And please lock your car. I know people keep saying, well, they'll get into it anyway, but you know, even if that's the case, if it takes them longer to get in, maybe somebody will see them and call us. So please lock your car, because in this particular set of thefts, we're fairly certain anybody's car who was locked wasn't in it. They were just going along checking the doors. So please lock your car. But again, you know, the things seem to have waned. We're working on those still. We have some leads. We'll see where that takes us. But we had a good many thefts from vehicles and some vehicle thefts. And it wasn't germane to the borough. It was across the region. So we're working cooperatively. And again, I'm very proud of our guys as to how they work and cooperate with other agencies. But if you take nothing else out of my ramblings, lock your car. I'd be happy to answer any questions that were on there. If anybody has any on the report, I do want to speak to our new officers. Wednesday, Officer Lardarello will be out in his own car with Officer Holt and his FTO kind of following around real closely, but he has reached that phase, so we're really close to him being ready to go solo with, working without a net. We're really happy about that. Great acquisition. Officer Chilcote is moving along, not as quickly, and that's to be expected. He did not have any type of previous experience. He's very fresh. So we're happy with our new officers to this point. Thank you. And that's it. Like I said, I can answer any questions that you might have. But my day was made early this morning, not early this morning, but 10 o'clock this morning with kids singing happy birthday to the Lincoln statue. So.
All right, any questions about the chief's report?
Is there any areas that are more predominant with the break-ins in the borough?
You know, they've really been all over. I mean, they've been concentrated. We had some York Street stuff, some of the streets close to York Street. But the vehicle thefts have just been all over. There's really no rhyme, no reason to where they're happening. And they started with those particular makes that are prone to being easy to steal, and I really don't want to expand upon that particular type. But, and they seem to have mutated into other ones that, perhaps people are leaving their keys in their car. I think that's another one. If you take nothing else from anything I say, don't leave your keys in your car. But it's. I think that the real answer there is no. There has been some, but I think that it's a possibility.
All right, so we have a motion there on the fee resolution, if anybody would care to make that.
I'll make a motion to authorize the preparation of a proposed resolution for the purposes of amending, modifying, and confirming certain maximum fees to be charged by an authorized towing company for the performance of certain motor vehicle towing and storage services to be paid by motor vehicle owners pursuant to the provisions of the Borough of Gettysburg Towing Ordinance, and to accordingly amend, modify, and confirm such maximum fees as set forth in the borough's fee resolution adopted on December 11th, 2023.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Anybody want to bring up the towing fees?
He's looking at me. When several councils ago were looking at raising special events prices for permits for special events, I was involved in the research, the canvassing of other municipalities, and finding out what they charge. So I had on my phone list several municipalities at the ready. I could easily contact them, and I did, about their towing procedures. I spoke with Dillsburg, Shippensburg, Chambersburg, and incidentally, when they called my husband answered the phone, and when the voice said, "This is the Chambersburg Police Department. We need to speak to Judy Butterfield." It gave John a joke, what it's been up to now. But they were talking about their towing procedures. Then I had email contact with Hanover, Lancaster, and Littlestown. Interesting things, not just about the amount that they towed, but their procedures in doing so. The bottom line for me in talking with those municipalities was that we are not that far out of line with our present fees. And I personally would like to see our fees remain the same, or if they are going to be increased, to be increased at a smaller rate than had been suggested. I don't believe in giant increases. It startles everybody involved. I think a minor increase would be the thing to do.
I would agree with my colleague, Ms. Butterfield. I asked the question last month, Chief, about, I think it was 125 to was it 250, I think?
250 or 225, yeah.
Yeah. And you said that was just a number that you.
And that's when I talked to the towing companies in the area, and I said, "What are you charging outside of the borough?" That was kind of a in the middle figure. As I said, one of them was 400 and some, and we're not going to go there. But that's where those numbers came up with. And the other thing that I looked at too is, I Google like everybody else when I look at it and see, what's an average towing fee, and it says, well, the average is $109. Well, that's if somebody's towing something from a parking lot over to the car dealer to get fixed. But, then our ordinance is actually so simplistic that it doesn't allow for the add-ons of different things. So it doesn't allow for a company to have to get somebody out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning. It really doesn't allow, doesn't allow us to set fees differently for those. So I had to look and get something that covered everything. So, it didn't allow for the use of dollies or winching or anything like that. And if I look and, what I know about towing can fit into a thimble, I think, but, if somebody's towing a front-wheel drive car and it's head in towards a building, they can't just hook onto the back of that car or the tow truck and tow it. I mean, they either have to dolly it or they have to pull that car out, turn it, and get the truck in front of it, and that takes time and hours, and that has winching. So, I add all those things in there. My concern, and I'm just going to be blunt, my concern is if we don't raise these, we're not going to get people to tow. I already have one tow company that told me point blank, we didn't renew our license this year because we can't afford to tow for the $125. I had one that says I'm not going to tow anymore. So that leaves us with one tow company that really didn't say on the face, I'm not going to tow anymore. If we're having like a weather event that we have coming up, I can't see us having a very easy time of getting tow trucks to come in and tow if we have to. And we don't have to tow that often for snow parking. I mean, Robbie can speak to that probably better than I can. We generally can get those folks to move, but if we do and we can't get a tow truck, then Robbie's got to deal with that. My main concern is public safety and towing of disabled vehicles on the roadway that's causing a traffic hazard. If I can't get a tow company to come and remove that vehicle, we have an issue. The crashes are the same way, but hopefully we can say a little bit. But that's where I'm coming from, and there's not a lot of municipalities that are our size that even regulate this. There's not. They don't regulate it at all. If I had a conversation with Robbie, we were going out to a shop, and I think you said to me, I didn't even know we regulated that.
Well, I want to thank my colleague for doing the legwork and calling these 6 other municipalities. And I think I expressed this the last meeting. Generally, people that are being towed, if you don't have AAA, a lot of these people are down on their luck, and I just am not comfortable with those rates. So I'm not going to vote for this right now. I'd like you to go back. And I do believe that there will be towing companies that will want the business. So
that's one of us, just to be frank.
But we already reduce You had 225.
Yeah.
We already reduced to 175.
Yeah, 175 is what's in the draft right now.
Yeah, so.
We're adding the drop fee, which we didn't exist before. That was added at 100. Did the others change to?
Yeah, 320, I think
Yeah.
$325 for the crash one, and it was split up before.
What was the original fee?
I think it was 175 before.
That sounds right.
How do these other municipalities do this, though? I mean, they're not much.
Widely varying ways. And what they add, some of the things the chief just mentioned, the little subcharges. Some do not do subcharges, they just have the lump fee, period. Others really break it down. If there's, what'd you call it, a winch?
Yeah, if they have to pull it out to do some things, if they have to use their winch, if they have to use certain types of hooks. Most common thing is like a dolly, which is, and I'm sure you've seen it on all-wheel drive cars, if they're towing them with a regular tow truck, they've got to put kind of a cart under one set of wheels, because if the vehicle's in park and it's all-wheel drive, all four of those wheels are locked up. So there's a dolly, I think they call them a dolly, it's kind of a cart that they sit them up on. So that, they break that down. Our ordinance doesn't allow for that. It says these three things are what we can set the fee on.
So I remember that at our last meeting, you recommended setting the impound fee at 75, which is lower than
Yes, and I did say
that
that it was the current, and I misspoke on that. It was 110. Frankly, I just think that's high for storage. I do believe that AAA will pay $250 for a tow. I think that's their limit, unless you use a AAA tow truck. And they have certain contracted people.
But not everybody has AAA.
No, they do not.
I'm fortunate I have AAA, but not everyone does. I just felt like these numbers were just kind of pulled out, from the air, really. I'd like to.
If we weren't setting the amount tonight.
You're not.
And we're not.
You're not setting the
I
amounts
just read
tonight.
the
That's what I
motion
want
again.
people to understand what you're voting on. You're voting on authorizing the preparation of the resolution.
To increase.
So you would be adopting those fees at the March meeting. So if you didn't want to get into a lot, certainly you have the ability to revisit this and talk about the information and at your work session if you wished. And then what your consensus would be ultimately how I'd prepare the resolution with regards to the fees. And then we would be able to, it would be on the agenda, we'd have the amounts, public would know what those are, and you could take formal action at the March meeting. But I do want you to understand that you're just authorizing the vehicle, which is the resolution, to proceed ahead.
And in the meantime, I can write up these figures from these various communities and get them to everyone before our next
That would be great.
discussion, and how they break down each one.
I also have a question. How many tow companies are in the current rotation agreement?
3.
Okay,
Well, technically, as of right now, 2,
okay,
because one has dropped out.
right, you said. Now, is it possible to get towing companies from outside of the state if they're licensed and can provide? If they're in Tawnytown, for example, because I have a list of 3 in Tawnytown and 3 in Hanover.
They have to have a yard, and I don't have the ordinance in front of me, a secure holding facility within so many miles of the borough. And I know Hanover is outside of that, and I'm fairly certain Tawnytown is outside of that.
And that's because of the ordinance.
That's because of the ordinance.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of authorizing this resolution, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Chief. It takes us to the office of the manager/treasurer and secretary. Ms. Sull.
Okay, you have my report in your packet, and I'll just give you an update. In my report last month, I noted that one of our public works laborers been out sick. He continues to be out sick, so Robbie is down a person right now for a while. It's indefinite when he'll be able to return. The other thing, shout out to Bill Orr. This is his 20-year anniversary this month as a police officer.
Right on.
That's great.
Right on.
That's all I have.
And I saw him on a horse today.
You did.
Wow. That's how we celebrate the 20th anniversary. Everybody tours around town on a horse. All right, Mr. Gable.
Let me start with a brief weather update. This has been an exciting weather day for those that follow snowstorms. Model guidance has dramatically shifted in the last 24 hours. This is a quite exciting phenomenon. There's a lot more convective activity with this storm coming than models had predicted before. And as the day progressed, the forecasts, what we call in the meteorological business, the lollipop, has been moving south. So south central Pennsylvania, just about the North Turnpike east over to Stroudsburg area, Easton, Allentown, looks to be in the sweet spot, the lollipop for the storm, which means our forecast has changed here. The reason I'm mentioning this now is we have not really had an opportunity today to issue those advance warnings. Earlier, President Moon mentioned the school district has closed for tomorrow already. We're not ready to call a snow emergency. Just know that once 2 inches of snow accumulates on streets, the snow emergency will be put into place. And it's good to know that now before everyone goes to bed. So whenever a snow emergency is declared for the borough, of course, parking in the Racehorse Alley Garage is suspended until the snow emergency is lifted. And it's been the practice that the snow emergency for the borough will last a 24-hour period after precipitation ceases. So right now, the forecast for the heaviest thumping snow of 1 to 2 inches an hour is about in the window of 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., just right before the morning commute, which is probably why the school district called that tonight. So if you're watching us on TV, might be a good time right now to go move your car to the garage so you don't have to get up in the morning and do it then. Certainly the snow emergency routes will be posted on the website again for everyone's review. And again, once snow emergency is declared, then that is the authorizing mechanism for which the police can remove vehicles by towing them off of the snow emergency routes so that our public works folks can adequately clear those snow emergency routes. So, exciting weather news. My borough update for the month. Typical numbers for January. Obviously, before our taxes are collected, we always run a deficit for the first month of the year. So we're collected $275,000 for the month of January and expended just under $600,000, which is spot on, typical for the borough in the month of January. Here are our bank account balances for last month, January 31st. You can see the general fund between its liquid cash and reserve is at $2.48 million. Pretty typical, and that is within our fund balance policy for reserve money as well. The other highlight here is the American Rescue Plan Act. The borough still has $1.6 million in its ARPA funds. Remember, we were appropriated $3.1 million. Much of the difference there has been used for the provision of government services as the borough's council's directive over the last couple of years. With that, concludes my update for the council, unless you have other questions before our motions.
Any questions for Mr. Gable? All right. We have a motion to approve all bills and payrolls for the month as presented.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. ACNB, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt the ACNB Bank Corporate Authorization Resolution retroactive to January 1, 2024 for approved signers for the Borough of Gettysburg. J. Matthew Moon, President, Judith R. Butterfield, Vice President Charles Gable, Borough Manager, and Sarah Stoll, Borough Secretary.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have the COLA increase.
I'll make a motion to authorize a COLA increase for retired police pensioner Douglas McKinney to be paid from the police pension plan effective February 1, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? This is pretty standard stuff. We do this every year for our retirees. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have the General Services Program.
Make a motion to approve the Borough of Gettysburg authorized representatives for the Pennsylvania Department of General Services Federal Surplus Program.
I think we missed some stuff there. Do you have the full text? Yeah, here you go, Peter.
Mine's different. Make a motion to authorize the completion and submission of an application for eligibility to the Pennsylvania Department of General Services for its federal surplus property program on behalf of the Borough of Gettysburg, and to designate the borough's authorized representatives to sign for the release of property on behalf of the borough.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Gable, could you explain this to us, please?
Can you call the gallery to order, please?
Pardon me, ladies. Excuse me, folks. We need you to control your conversation, please. Mr. Gable?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. The federal surplus program with the Pennsylvania Department of General Services, the borough has been involved in that for many, many years. And as what that is, the different departments are able to go to their surplus building in Harrisburg and purchase at very minimal cost items they may need. The police department has used it. We've used it for administration, for things, for file cabinets or office supplies and cleaning supplies, and Public Works uses it probably the most, but that is what the program's all about, to allow those people to be able to go over and do that.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. A motion to approve the Gettysburg Fire Department active volunteer eligibility list as submitted by the Chief of the Fire Department for the Gettysburg Borough Volunteer Tax Credit Program, and to authorize the issuance of the 2023 tax credit certificates accordingly.
So moved.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Second.
That's okay.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, for the benefit of the public, last year, council decided to take advantage of a state program that allows us to offer tax incentives to those who serve on the volunteer fire department. They must log a minimum number of calls, and that is administered and tabulated by the fire department. And so any volunteer firefighter who meets the minimum and resides in the borough is afforded a property tax discount. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. It takes us to liaison reports for the evening. Ms. Sellers.
Good evening, all. Good to see everyone. You have my report if you have any specific questions, but I'll go over a few things. I started the year with the State of American Business Report out of the U.S. Department Chamber of Commerce. A fascinating message that happens every year. Tells you kind of the heartbeat of America, where American businesses are, what their challenges are. This year was a very pleasant message about optimism. We're going into a presidential election year. We're already seeing really negative campaign ads, all the depressing things that you see on the news that are going around. But really the foundation of the world economy, and certainly our local economy, is American free enterprise. That is alive and well in Gettysburg. We have a pretty robust downtown. We're seeing new businesses open. We're seeing expanding of existing businesses. A new building project that opened up this weekend with new bus tours out of Baltimore Pike. So really was very excited to see that message. So if you have a chance to check that out, a really fascinating message. A big investment that you've heard me talk about before is the facade improvement program that continues. We will be able to make a couple of more awards. So if you have a program for a sign or other paint project or other facade, street-facing facade project, I do have some other funds available out of that DCED monies. So please contact me, business owners, and I will help you with those. I hope you've seen the updates around downtown from that particular program. So. Gettysburg Welcome Center, we've continued on this. We've been talking about it for several years, obviously, but it continues to kind of pick up speed in different places. We are currently being considered for state funding for that construction as well as federal funding. It's a long game, so we continue to wait for announcements on those, and I'm also pursuing local monies. So as Manager Gable mentioned, local grants of every kind usually have a match component. Main Street Gettysburg works very hard to be a big solution for that match component. Local grants, we apply for those repeatedly so that we have a reserve account. So when it's time for public funds to be awarded, that we can meet that local grant match without reaching entirely into public funds. We can bring a lot of that private commitment to the table, and we are doing that with the Gettysburg Welcome Center. Baltimore Street revitalization was mentioned earlier, so that fourth round of that application is due at the end of this month. We have secured 23 letters of support. If there's businesses out there that would like to write a letter in support of that, I will certainly give you the directions to do so, directed to the U.S. Department of Transportation, so that those would be due preferably this week, but we could take them into next week as we get that major grant application written. It's the first one was about 188 pages, so this is not a small undertaking. It's a very complicated project, but it's ultimately $14 million worth of revitalization that would happen from the cemetery to Lincoln Square. So we continue to push that forward. Other investment that's happened. So I finally have some numbers from the Christmas Festival, and I'm really excited to share these. Post-festival surveys and analysis that we have from some of our partners and things, and I won't go over tons of numbers, but 12,000 people attended that weekend, Friday to Sunday, and that's with 2 rainy days. Friday was pretty soggy, and Sunday was also pretty soggy, but Saturday was pretty robust. 48% stayed 2 or more nights in town with us. 43% of them traveled more than 50 miles to get here, which I think is extraordinary, but the number that I love is that 30% of them were local. It means that people are coming and finding out what we're doing downtown where they live. Super. 82% plan to come back this year. 85% came to shop, and 22% spent more than $500 while they were here. I thought that was incredible. Social media following is in the 40 to 50,000 follower range, so that's growing all the time. And businesses, I'm very thankful to have some feedback from businesses saying 52% of our businesses say they rated it as high value weekend for them, and they had increased foot traffic. That's not for every business certainly, but we're seeing a trend there. I'm also very excited to report that I'm having businesses call and say, how can I get involved now? How can I be part of this? We have ideas. Please do that. That's how this is going to grow, and that's how it's going to serve your businesses downtown. We will continue to do that. And then last thing, this Saturday, we will be doing Gettysburg Loves Love on Saturday. So February 17th, we have 90 couples registered, Chief. So if you're registered or not, downtown this Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4, but the ceremony's at 3 o'clock. The mayor will be renewing the vows of those 90 couples and whatever other onlookers. But, you know, as exciting as that part of it is, and as romantic as it is following Valentine's Day this week, it's really just another tremendous opportunity that we're bringing people into town, and we have a ton of businesses that are supporting this event and really turning out to make this another reason for people to come to Gettysburg, certainly in the off-season, and it's giving us another boost at this time of year. So that's what I have, unless you have questions. Okay. All right. Yes, sir.
Just a question. I know that's going to be on the steps of the Gettysburg Hotel.
Yes, sir.
At 1 Lincoln Square.
Correct.
Is the square shut down at all?
The square is not shut down.
Will it be all over the quad at 1 Lincoln?
It'll be all over the quad at 1
Much
Lincoln.
like the Tuba Fest.
Much like the
A
Tuba
lot of
Fest.
people.
We are working with the police department and
Thank you.
the permits.
Thank you, Chief, for the safety
We
and help.
pulled parking for
Yes.
the.
Thank
the,
you. I think
or
it's
had
gonna-
them
I think
pull
it's a great
parking, I
idea. I
should
think
say,
it's
for-
going to be a more of attendance than we think.
It's already, yeah, it's already bigger than what we anticipated. So we're hopefully going to make different provisions maybe for next year. Hopefully, if this turns into an annual event. And I'll give a big shout out to Community Media, Destination Gettysburg, and of course the mayor for helping us pull this all together. Another great opportunity.
Great.
All
And
right.
again, thank you, Chief, for making sure we've got
Thanks.
some safety out there.
Well, I don't think I've been to a meeting lately that, with the mayor, that she hasn't plugged Gettysburg Loves Love in the square, so it's.
Love is in the square.
Her love is in the square.
All right. All right, that takes us to Gara.
The rec park, winter months are typically when repairs and maintenance occur, so there's not a whole lot to report, but I did want to report that they were granted a green space grant, which will pay for costs associated with repairs to the playgrounds, and of course, an additional grant from the Borough of Gettysburg as well to be used for capital improvements at the rec park.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Gettysburg Municipal Authority, Mr. Berger.
I was not able to make last month's meeting, but I know that they took a tour of the office building, which I'm going to be able to do, I think, before the next meeting, which is next Monday, and I'll definitely be there for that.
Cool. Do you know when you're doing that?
Probably 5.
What day?
You want to check it out?
Maybe.
All right.
Next Monday, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me know.
All right.
All right. The bid. Mrs. Butterfield.
The bid members seem to be excited about the premise of a new miniature golf course at the former Hardee's lot there on Steinway. And I've heard several people say that when young children come to Gettysburg and say, "What will I be doing?" we all say, "You'll be looking at buildings with your parents." Well, now we'll be able to say, "You can play miniature golf." That plan will be before the zoning hearing board this week. So far, those preparing for that meeting have not heard anyone speaking against the plan, so that may be somebody that's well received.
All right, thank you. The Boroughs Association, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. The next meeting is Monday, the 19th, and Representative Torrin Ecker will be there. Also, there's a new president of the organization. It's Anina Tipler, who's the mayor of York Springs.
Okay. The COG, Mrs. Butterfield.
Yes, there are two interesting subcommittees that COG is addressing, very progressive issues. One is a broadband committee. Apparently, there are many children in Adams County who do not have access to internet. And more the schools are turning in their curricula to internet issues. And it puts these children at a real disadvantage. Their parents are taken to hauling them to public libraries to access Wi-Fi. So COG is looking into how to expand that so that it is offered to more children throughout the county. The other interesting subcommittee on which I happen to serve is for cybersecurity, in which case training will be offered to municipalities on how to protect their systems from hacking. Just this past week, Cumberland County was hacked, and a lot of their information about their residents and other private information were accessed. So it's two very interesting subcommittees. The next meeting of COG will be on the 22nd of February, and they welcome anyone attending.
All right, thank you. Happy, Mrs. Lawson.
Happy met last week, and two things. One is they're broadening the membership of Happy, and they are adding a member from Littlestown because they're doing a lot in terms of trails, which is great. Ultimately, they'd like to connect what's happening here in Gettysburg, south of town, into Maryland. And in that same vein, some members of Happy are meeting with private property owners east of town to connect the trail. When you're talking about building bicycle or walking trails, it's usually piecemeal. It's even what we were doing here on Washington Street. You can't get the funding all at once, and so you're doing it in parcels. And so they're looking over at St. Francis has agreed that they can use part of their property. The school district is considering using their property, which would actually help because the students then would be able to use those trails. County offices, but there are a couple private properties, some farms, and they're working with them to see if they can get right away. So that's all I have.
Okay. ACTPO, Mrs. Butterfield.
ACTPO meets quarterly, and their next meeting is the 27th of March.
And Mr. Berger, anything on the trail feasibility study? All right, thank you. I did not see a recycling report. Is there anything you'd like to share about that, Mrs. Butterfield?
Indeed. The recycling committee met in this room on the 30th of January. We invited waste management officials to attend, and 3 did so. One was an official with whom we have dealt in the past, so we were familiar with her. But she brought along with her 2 people we had not met before. One is the new contract. Charles, was it director? Is that her title? She's in charge of contract negotiations.
Something like that, yeah.
And so it was interesting for her to get to know us. The other one who attended is a gentleman in charge of operations. And it's my understanding that he decides which truck goes where on any given morning. I was really pleased that our new planning and zoning director, John Whitmer, could be there. He could see how we interact with waste management officials and get a taste of how we're handling recycling. And I was pleased that Deborah could be there because it gave those waste management folks the opportunity to meet the person who's in charge of reporting our data to the state.
All right. The fire report was in your file. This is 2 months, though. I have not seen an EMS report. I'm not sure what the delay is with them reporting.
I don't know. I've not received anything.
Okay. That takes us to elected officials' comments. Anybody? Love is in the square.
There's going to be pictures of kissing and hot cocoa.
Hot cocoa.
I will, if no one else is
Please,
going to.
please.
At Home in Adams County is an organization addressing our housing crisis in Adams County. Stacy Rice is the chairman of that group, and she invites anyone who would like to participate in their subcommittees. Samples of the committees are Housing Working Group, which will meet on March 12th, and 2 other committees that are due to be scheduled will be the Transportation Committee and the Coalition work. The group is collaborating with the Arts Council for the People Project, and we meet on that at the end of the month, so I'll have more on what that is next report.
Any other elected officials comment? I would just want to take advantage of this and bring everybody's attention to a report that was put out by the federal government on the 6th of this month. This sort of speaks to a lot of the success we've had over the last 2 years. We've all sort of watched in amazement as the winter months which are usually fairly poor for those of us in the hospitality industry, they have been not just rebounding, but surpassing historic numbers. The work that Main Street's doing with the Christmas Festival in cooperation with the borough, Love is in the Square, all of these things. We have creative, talented, dedicated people who are constantly coming up with new opportunities for us to bring people here, even during the dark, cold winter months. Gettysburg, according to a U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics report released on the 6th, has the lowest unemployment rate in all of Pennsylvania at 2.2%. I just really want to highlight to everybody how amazing that is. Business is good for us. It has been good this winter. And things are looking up. I hope that gives people comfort and solace. It takes us to our second public comment section of the evening. Again, please limit yourself to 5 minutes. Please use the podium. Please state your name and address of residence.
Good evening, I'm Brian Hodges at 137 Ridge Avenue. So I want to talk about something totally different tonight than anybody's talked about, and that would be the borough website and its advertisement and promotion of a continual protest that's been going on in Lincoln Square. Yesterday I checked the borough website, Gettysburg website, to look at tonight's Borough Council meeting agenda, which is always listed. And on the top right-hand side of the borough website homepage is a section called Calendar of Upcoming Events. And listed on those events are tonight's meeting, Love is Love, right? The planning meeting, Shade Tree Commission meeting, the GBSWA meeting. But also listed at the very top was a protest yesterday in Lincoln Square titled Peaceful Protest Against Genocide in Gaza. I know these protests have been going on for weeks, months maybe, and they do have the correct permits. Karen gives out these permits, I believe, and are reoccurring every Sunday, at least through the rest of February, which is listed on the borough website. And I'm all for peaceful protests, lawfully done, and I'm not here to make a political statement or take sides in this protest. But my question is why the borough itself is advertising and promoting these protests as an event on the website. Is this something new? Is this something the borough has always done? For instance, if I was to get a permit to do a Black Lives Matter protest or rally, Blue Lives Matter, pro-choice, pro-abortion, would that be advertised on the borough website as a special event, recurring? In my opinion, that's really not a great idea for the borough to be doing. They shouldn't be advertising protests or promoting or endorsing protests of any kind, whatever side politically you're on. This is really a kind of a slippery slope, I think, and I think that protest should be taken down from the borough website. I don't really understand why it's on there, to be honest with you. And it's not an event, it's a protest. So, thank you.
If I just may address that, because I expected that to be a concern to answer your question. Any permitted event, regardless of the content, is always on the website. So there have been fundraising bike races, for example, that have come through town that have had special event permits. In this case, this organization has the proper permits from the borough. And so, just like you said, if you want to do a Blue Lives Matter special event, that too would be posted on the website. Doesn't mean this body is endorsing that, it's just saying that they have the proper permits for the borough.
Interesting.
Can I just add to that too? I think it's just in terms of transparency. I think it's important. That way people want to know what's going on and why this group, whatever group it is. And I didn't check the website. I wasn't even aware of the protest yesterday. But I think just for transparency, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I can see how it would look like an endorsed event if it shows up. It's interesting.
What if it were labeled permits?
It is.
It is labeled.
It is. If you call it up, you'll see the special event permit number listed under the tagline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other public comment? Yes, please.
I'm not sure that this actually is a public comment. It's a question that I have, and I don't know how else to address it. I own the property on the corner of Carlisle and Water Street. It's a 3-story brick building. And I received a violation notice that said that there's a tripping hazard.
Sorry, ma'am, could you please state your name and
Oh, I'm sorry.
address,
Linda
please?
Cockle.
Thank you.
And the property is 168 and 170 Carlisle Street. It's a 3-story brick. Anyhow, my family's owned that building for about 65 years now. And I remember when I was young that when my parents renovated the restaurant that they had there, shortly after they had finished with their renovation, the borough paved the Tiber, and they then chopped up a piece of the sidewalk over the bridge that would over the Tiber. And there's been a tripping hazard for the last 60 years. I went with my father, I don't know, in the 1960s to address that issue, and my son had the Ugly Mug Cafe there, and he appealed to the town. But I'm being told that I need to fix the tripping hazard, which I didn't create, neither did my family. I mean, it was, so I'm not sure how to address it. I went to code enforcement, and I think that he was, you know, he can only tell me what he's been asked to do. So that's not the place to go. So I'm here for some guidance. What do I do? I don't want to replace my sidewalk. I'm 75 and I'm finished working. I would not like to gut the little bit of money I have left, so I'm not real sure what to do here.
Do we want to address that?
I have some photographs. If you want to look, you can see what they're, but again, I don't think this is.
This is a public comment period. I would just say that
Yeah.
I'm aware that.
So what can I do? Can you tell me that?
I'm aware you had a conversation with our code compliance officer.
Pete, yeah.
You've addressed it to the council. This is on their work agenda for the year, so as things unfold,
Well, he suggested to me that I had about a month to take care of this, and I don't want to get a fine for not having.
I can't speak to that in this forum.
Okay, so.
I mean, that's a code compliance issue.
So it's either fix it or I just don't have an answer. You don't have an answer for me. Okay, thank you, thank you.
Any other public comment?
Sometimes the knees work, sometimes they don't. I'm Sue Sipperly. I live at 314 North Stratton, and I have two items. First, I believe it would be beneficial to broadcast the Planning Commission meetings. It's currently the main way for citizens to get the latest version of the rezoning effort and be able to discuss it. Their meetings are a little more informal. It would create a useful record for future reference and help the planning director in providing minutes. It's hard to lead the discussion and keep notes at the same time. I've seen that in the past. Major decisions about upcoming projects are made at the Planning Commission level. That's been mentioned here tonight, not the council. Getty Station is one of those. And also the press could view the video if they can't make the meeting. And then the second thing, sometimes it's hard to hear council in this room. And if possible, it'd be nice to get microphones. These microphones are for community media. They're for the, and even people at home sometimes have told me it's blurry. So maybe some kind of microphone system for a council in this lectern would be helpful. Gets hard to hear if you're talking to each other across, crossways to each other. And some of you have louder voices than others. And and I know sometimes it's been hard to hear me on the other side of the room. So I try to be aware of that, but this is not something new. And some of you may remember Mike Shestock, who's no longer with us, but he used to come to every meeting and make a public comment. And he was always sitting in the front row. And people thought he was trying to be intimidating. But he finally said it was because he couldn't hear. And if there's something you can do to amplify what's going on in the meeting out to the room, it would be helpful. Thanks.
Understood. Thank you. Any other public comment?
I'll try and make this brief. Good evening, Martin Jolin, 612 Long Lane. I wanted to briefly talk about broken sidewalks and trees. It is quite a dilemma. It's made more complicated by the public space, private ownership conundrum, especially given the sidewalks. So I've served on planning for 8 years and 4 years on Shade Tree Commission. And my favorite part of both of them is Chapter 22 of Saldo. I imagine none of you have a favorite part of our ordinances, but I do. It deals with landscaping, and having gone to school for landscape architecture at Penn State, the purpose statement of the ordinance is just extraordinary. I would like you to look at it for yourselves. And I'd also note that sidewalks do not have a purpose statement. It's rather short. And unfortunately, that purpose statement, I suppose a lot of people probably wouldn't share, those foundational beliefs I have. And perhaps that's because of the private property, public space dilemma. I came across a real example of this at 38 East Stevens. It's become a bit of an obsession of mine over the past couple months. How do we preserve the trees and fix the sidewalk? That's heaved some 4 inches. If you do a cost-benefit analysis, it would cost Shade Tree $4,000 to remove the trees. And then you have the additional cost for the homeowner to repair the sidewalk. So you can see there is, one way or another, we're paying for the removal of the trees if we go down that route. Preserving it, if possible, requires some careful planning. I've spoken to Lance King of State College. He is their arborist. Some municipalities do have their own arborist to deal with sidewalk and tree issues. And he's given me some helpful information. I've passed that along to our planning director. And frankly, I think we need some careful planning, and I fear it's going to be a long slog. I believe the undue burden of sidewalk repair when it comes to street trees requires some financial assistance. Either we can cut them down, which requires taxpayer money, or we can assist the homeowner in preservation, which benefits us all. If anyone is interested in developing, discussing some ways to address the sidewalk tree problems, please talk to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will adjourn to executive session. Thank you, everybody.